we are again at the yards here with Barry. I'm Nick. We're a week away, man. I don't know when people will be watching this, but it's pretty close.
It's like it's Jets Christmas season. The tree's up. The tree is up. The tinsel is tinseled, and it's the best time of the year to be a Jets fan right now. And it's been that way for the past 15 years. It's great.
I think especially in football too. Like obviously from a Jets fan perspective, we really enjoy the team building aspect because it's all just based off potential and not based off result. But
Yeah.
with the sport that has 53-man rosters, when you need to, so much needs to go right in order for you to have a good roster. There's so much holes you have to fill. It really is the funnest part, is it not? I mean, that's my favorite part.
It's the favorite part of the year. The NFL draft is by far the best draft. The first, what do you want to say? First 130 picks are legitimate guys that you think have a chance to actually make a contribution next year. And then the fifth, sixth, and seventh rounds, whatever, they're lottery tickets. Not much of a difference between those guys and free agents, but still not the end of the world. It's much better than the other drafts.
What's your feeling? I don't know, but I've been a little bit checked out of the draft. Probably the most I've been because of all the Mets hoopla and excitement for the season. They've started off well, and I haven't been completely plugged into the looking at every mock. I've been starting to dig in the last week or so, preparing for this pod and then future pods. So where are you at right now?
I'm plugged in, but I think in typical Jets fashion, I think it's a 6-player draft, and we have the 7th pick. Now, with that said, I think there's a chance we could get one of the top guys. But I think it's going to be a pretty chalky first 7, first 6, first 8, somewhere in there. And then after that, I think it's going to be a complete I think this could be all over the board. But, do you want to go over what we think the first 6 are going to be leading up to the – because it's pretty chalky.
Yeah, this is a helpful exercise for me as probably the least plugged in I've been in a while. And not for lack of excitement, but just, I'd like a little bit of a review. Let's go through it. So, I mean, at 1, the Titans are going to go Ward, right?
It's done. He's locked in. And I don't love that pick.
You can't even bet that anymore.
It's like minus 4,000, so it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And the Browns are now the only thing. The Browns are locked into Hunter. That's happening. You could see a trade up. I think that's 5% chance of happening. I think the Browns are going to.
What would that be
to get Hunter?
Think?
I think.
Okay.
I think the value proposition, and the Giants just released a note saying the same thing, that they would let him play both ways full time. So hypothetically, if you have a Travis Hunter and you're running a franchise and you say, hey, look, I can get a legit top, I can get Garrett Wilson on offense and Sauce Gardner on defense, and I can have one roster spot. Yeah, teams might actually trade up for that. The value, what is that player worth? So, like I said, 95% chance I think the Browns just lock him down. Is there a Godfather offer out there? I think for anyone it would be for him. So, but we'll just assume.
There's a business end to it too, right? You're seeing what Ohtani's done for baseball, even for casuals. There's not much that's ESPN worthy these days when there's so much going on, but there is ticker of, oh wow, Hunter had 100 yards receiving and had 2 interceptions. That day will come, and that's business. I mean, that's jersey sales, that's ratings. So I could see that, especially.
As a Jets fan, it's a fun way to imagine Travis Hunter could be Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. That's the comp. That's right now.
Potentially could be better than each of them individually as well.
Exactly.
Maybe, yeah.
So
he projects to be a better corner than a receiver, right? That's the consensus.
Yeah, I think. Yes, I think that's the consensus. But I think there's also the guy could be a legitimate number 1 receiver. In that top 10, the 9th best receiver in the NFL sort of thing. So. I've only
watched broadcast on him, but I mean the ball skills are crazy, and talk about flying off the screen. I mean, there's not.
He's the generational him, and I think, and then we'll go to number 3. I think Abdul is pretty locked into the Giants. Actually, super interesting defensive line if they do add him.
Absolutely, Dexter.
Yeah,
Thibodeau, that's exciting.
It's interesting. So I think that's going to happen. I can't see him. And at 4, the Patriots, I think will be the most nerve-wracking pick for us. I'm pretty locked into who I think they're going to take, but what do you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Membo. What do you think?
I hope it's not Membo. I think it's actually going to be Will Campbell. I think that's who they're
Okay.
going to take. That's who I think they're going to take.
As a guard, I'm just confused though, just because again, I'm not as locked in there. Just where do you see him actually on the line? Because
I see him
taking him
again.
fourth overall.
I think they're gonna try. You know, I'm not too worried about the arm length. The T-Rex arms, it's whatever, a quarter of an inch. That's kind of a ridiculous thing. Do I think he's the best prospect? No. Do I hope the Patriots take him for various reasons, Jets and just hating the Patriots? Yeah, I want him to take Campbell. I think he's a guy who probably doesn't have a very his floor and sailing, or probably his basement and sailing, are a little limited. So he's just a guy that I'll talk myself into if the Jets take him at 7. But right now, he's probably the guy I don't want them to get. So I'm hoping the Patriots take him.
Who do we got next there? I mean,
So then the Jags are going at 5, and it's
I
the
saw
Jets.
Mason Graham for a while.
It's locked. I mean, that talk about chalk. I mean, that's the chalk outline right there. What is it? What is the chalk? What does the chalk mean? What is the actual origin? That's something that you would know. What, like when you say keeping the chalk?
I don't know. I'm gonna go complete just laws of detection here. Like someone back in the day had a board,
Yeah.
and they were writing in the names in chalk. That's what I'm gonna go with. You know,
And I
chalk
kept in
lines
chalk.
like for dead bodies.
I was like, that. It's like a dead body. Like you're once I kill you, it's
dead.
there. It's just staying there forever. It's just locked in. So maybe that's it. So I think Mason Graham going. That's the guy. That's the dream guy for the Jets. We'll talk about that more. He's the only guy that I would be willing to trade up. I don't see it happening because you'd have to probably trade with the Pats, etc. It's a tough trade to make, but that's the guy the Jets need. But I
I've
think
pulled off a little bit on him, I will say. I mean, I definitely would be excited, especially just staying at 7. I think it's good value. I don't know if he's got like game-wrecking elite traits,
Yeah.
which makes me a little, is a bit of an overdraft. But again, similar, and we'll get to this with philosophy later on in the show. But is it a bad thing to just take like a really good player? Like,
Yeah.
and that's the kind of thing that it's not an overdraft if he's really good, right?
and a really good player next to Q is going to just wreak havoc. So he's the guy they need, but I don't think.
So
he's
in
gonna
this
be
scenario, at 7, Membu and Warren are both on the board. I believe I'm not speaking out of school to say those are the 2 most popular
Yep.
mock picks at 7.
Yep.
Where do you think they go if this scenario plays out the way we just did?
So if I keep going, I think that the Raiders at 6 is the pick that I think now we're really starting to get some variables. You keep hearing about Gentry being the guy they're going to take, but Tom Brady, if he's part of that organization, I cannot believe that he's going to allow them to take a running back at 6 when that team is still a mile away. It doesn't make sense to me. So that's the pick that scares me. I could see them just taking Membu here at 6. That's
Really?
the pick. That's the
See,
pick.
I wasn't even considering the Raiders and sniping us. I didn't even consider.
Yeah, everyone's got them so locked into Shador, or the newer mocks are Gentry, and everyone's saying Gentry is a legitimate player, prospect, but he's also not as high as a ranked prospect as Bijan. And in what universe would you trade? I mean, what's Bijan's trade value? That's the thing that just we start
I think
getting talking about
the same point could be used for both ends of the argument, which is Pete, right? Where it's Pete, you're like he might just fall in love with Gentry and have. But on the same side, you also have Pete saying this is one of the deepest running back classes I think we've had in years.
Yeah.
So you're looking at like, man, I can get the Rutgers kid in the second round. I can do a lot of different things later on, and just moving the pieces to maximize value there. I can see both ends of the argument.
Yeah,
the Gentry smoke seems very real. So I think the Raiders are going to go with an offensive weapon, whether it be Shador, Gentry, even Tet potentially, although he's really falling. I mean, I don't know. Membu, I guess, would make sense.
So I could see Membu, or again, Tet is the guy that's probably the and this is you find this in the draft that's all over mocks. So we really don't know. I really don't know where Tet could go. Would it shock me if the Jets took Tet if this draft goes this way? Membu's gone. No, but at the same time, would it shock me if he goes 20th? No. It's just, you always hear that there's a big gap between what the mocks are and what the NFL is, and I think Tet's going to fall into that range. Now, he actually might be a nice fit for the Jets, and, this pipe dream of trading out is just that. It's a pipe dream. This is not the draft that this isn't the draft that anyone's going to trade back. Now, the only team that I think this is a prediction that I'd say, again, about a 15% chance. I think Tampa's going to call us and say, hey, we want to come up for 7 for the Georgia kid. And he's a real great match for exactly what Tampa and Bulls want to do. And going back to 19, the value there is probably a second and third this year and maybe a third next year. Do you make that trade? Go back
Yeah,
all the way to 19 for a second and a
absolutely.
third. Yeah, so I think that's. I mean, if you look at the fair value, the actual value is right around 500 points to go back to 19, and that would basically be almost exactly the Tampa Bay's second and third round pick, and then they'd sweeten it by throwing in next year's third, which is the equivalent of this year's fourth, which is about 100 points. So that's about the trade. That's the only team I could see coming up. But I do like the Georgia kids. I like both of them. And I could also see the Jets making that pick. I do not think they're going to take Tyler Warren. I think that's pure smoke.
Really?
Pure smoke.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel too much like the most obvious answer is least often the correct one. Like it's been a while with him, kind of like similarly to like Icky a couple years ago, like where it's like okay, Icky, and then it leads to something else. I'd be okay with Warren at 7 to move on to 7. I guess it's just I think you're getting into a similar to me. He's in a similar Mason Graham bucket for me, where he would fill a need and he's good. So like again, how upset can you be at that? The prospect of taking a good player that you need, and he would really help the run game. But it's an overdraft for you.
This is, I'm going to change your mind, right? I'm going to change your mind in 1 minute. You're going to say, okay, I'll do the same thing. So let's just say we take one of it's going to be easy. Say we take one of the Georgia kids. Tight end is the worst case scenario for me because you want to go crazy? Let's go get Mayer from the Raiders. And it's only going to cost us a fourth, maybe a fifth, right? Either one. And then you want to do two. You want to do a 12 set. You want to run out of a 12. You want to pass capture. You can go get Goddard from the Eagles. They're begging for a fourth. That's on the record.
Yeah.
They're begging for a fourth. So that's an easy, we'll give you a fourth and you give us back Goddard in the sixth. Now we have Mayer and Goddard for our fourth and fifth round picks. What do I want anything to do with Carter Ward?
Yeah.
Tyler Warren
Carter
from
Warren,
Penn State.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with Carter.
Yeah, neither do I.
I want Membu.
So that's my point. Is if it's the worst case scenario and the linemen are gone, we go with the Williams guy. We go with the Williams from Georgia, and I think we're fine with that. Just a weapon to put on defense, super athletic. That's the worst case scenario, and I think that's the move the Jets make. I can't see them. I haven't seen us. I know we love Mayer. I haven't seen us connected. Have you heard any of that? I know the Raiders are shopping him.
At the time when we were talking about trading with the Raiders various different times, and when I believe it was the Seahawks who were talking about when that Geno trade originally happened, that Mayer was on the board and he was on the trade block, and he was available really to anybody who wanted them. It made me think why the Jets would not throw their hat into the ring.
Yeah,
and I haven't heard it, and I'm guessing the new brass isn't a big fan. I was a huge fan coming out. I don't think it's worked out perfectly in Vegas, but I still think there's a lot there.
He's a 25-year-old tight end who was fine, right? And that's the other thing about tight ends. They typically, outside of the super, even the great tight ends, take a couple years. It's a very tough position. It's physical. There's a lot to learn. So I'll take a flyer on, again, this is the Jets kind of model. Let's take a 26-year-old kid, 25-year-old kid, trade him for a fifth-round pick and see what you have. If you have 2 years, doesn't work out, who cares? Yeah. I'd much rather have a defensive player that I can line up at linebacker and defensive end, and especially I think our defensive ends are a little light. Who knows what's going to happen with Jermaine coming back off of I don't think anyone can really count on him this year, as well as your boy McDonald just not standing up to the run. So having another defensive end, I don't see that really being a problem, and I'm confused as why we're not talking more about that. Then I actually think it's a bigger positional need than our right tackle, especially in the draft.
Well, that gets into for me, if I could only choose one position group where it's like the Jets are making every pick at this position group, it would be defensive line, specifically defensive
100%.
tackle. I don't know. You agree, right?
100%.
I was looking through the advanced stats, and it's funny how the Jets, they fall somewhere around 17, 18 in almost every important defensive metric. It felt worse to me on tape. It felt worse to me watching the games, especially in the gotta have it moment, which is not the most analytical way to think about this, but it's just they were so bad in the interior. And I think that if you can only choose one position group in order to say, okay, this is going to make the Jets somewhat of a contender, they're going to have life, but you can only take a defensive tackle in the first, defensive lineman in the second, another defensive tackle in the third. That would be where I would go. More than offensive line, more than receiver, more than corner. And you agree?
100%. To me, again, I'm on the record thinking the Jets should not have been as bad as they were last year. They weren't a good team. They probably weren't even a playoff team on a best case scenario. But their defensive line, they couldn't get a pass rush. They couldn't stop the run. Really inconsistent. Didn't have the playmakers. Even McDonald with his sacks, a lot of those were just he would beat a guy or would be So I think half of those were kind of sloppy sacks. That should be a stat, right? A sloppy sack versus like a real where you beat someone.
Sloppy sacks, that's your fun.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, defensive line, 100%. It's kind of criminal to have a player like Hugh and not to have somebody next to him who should be. And that gets into the Jets' philosophy, that the old Bobby philosophy is we don't need another guy. We can coach anybody up. And that just was the hubris that kind of sunk the ship last year. If we had a player like a Mason Graham or a guy who can actually make a difference, it just changes everything that I think the way teams attack us, etc. Especially now with two really the fastest linebackers we've probably ever had. But now you're getting into, is that part of the problem that our linebackers are too small and the running issues aren't from our defensive line, but instead from our linebackers?
But I guess the question is, I mean, you're not going to change that this year, at least. You extended Sherwood, and I think, well, Quincy is kind of a stealth trade deadline candidate for me, depending on how the season goes. It's you're not going to change that right now, right? So the best thing to do moving forward is to fill up front, and then you allow them to roam free. So going back to philosophy, then, what do you hope their philosophy is as a baseline? With every pick, with every position, we kind of knew what Joe's philosophy was.
But what was his philosophy? Honestly, what was his philosophy?
I feel like his philosophy was, I think he wanted to be logical. I think that if you look through most of his picks, WMD probably notwithstanding, a lot of them made sense in terms of the positional need and in which they were ranked on their board. I think that a lot of it was like, okay, I could see why they went there. I don't think there was many left field picks. There weren't many Nathan Shepherds, like Kendrick Ellis's. There weren't many where it's like, what are you thinking? It's almost like Joe was playing to the message boards a little bit. I felt that way a lot, where it was, I almost wish he took more of a swing, wish that they went something, wish that the philosophy was a little bit more what I hope Muji and Glenn's was, which is like, we're taking our guy. It felt a lot more like his buddies, Todd and Daniel. It felt a lot more like this is just what the guys this is what the boys think. This is what the nerds think, and it was too easy to predict the Jets drafts, I feel like. And I feel like his philosophy was don't make a mistake, and inherently he made a lot of them.
Yeah, I like that because I think that also was a lot of Bobby's philosophy at playing football. Don't make a mistake. Don't. Our defense is so good. Don't turn it over. Don't try to score points. Don't let Zach do anything. And I think overall, it wasn't like we were a big team. It wasn't like we were a fast team. It wasn't like we were a young team. It wasn't like we were a team of veterans. We were just this kind of mishmash, with the exception, you'll agree with this, for a while, it was, we're going to draft the right guys. And Bobby would say, oh, guys who love ball. And you kind of saw that a little bit, but then they missed on some of the guys that they thought were the great clubhouse guys, right? Oh, Elijah Moore is a great clubhouse guy. Guy was cancer, they trade him. Oh, Michael Carter's a great clubhouse guy. They trade him. Now, maybe they were. Doesn't seem like Elijah's a great clubhouse guy in Cleveland, but maybe the team is just so cancerous that they couldn't even tolerate that. But I saw that a little bit. Guys who just love playing football, and they kind of got away with that away from that as time went on, because it was kind of bullshit. It wasn't really a thing. Even Izdik would kind of say stuff like that. Oh, we're going to get smart football players, and we'll make it up. Don't be an athlete, just be smart. Well, that doesn't work in the NFL. So I guess if I'm the Jets, what I'm hoping for is let's just be big. I don't care. Let's just be huge. Let's beat the shit out of you in the lines. I'd love to do that. That's the only time the Jets have ever had success when I've been in both of our lifetimes, is when they've really had an identity, being a tough play action pass team on offense, and on defense just being an attacking defense. I could see that. And with that said, I don't think it's out of the question for the Jets to take the linebacker from Alabama with their first pick, to try to get bigger at linebacker, to try to stop. It's the thing about Detroit. Detroit always, I think it's things we used to laugh about. They didn't give a shit about positional value, but they were drafting really good football players, a running back, a middle linebacker, an off-ball linebacker. It would not shock me if things don't go well, if the Jets say screw it, we're just going to take Jihad Campbell from Alabama and we're going to put this guy in. We're not big enough at linebacker. Now we can. I still love the idea of Quincy rushing the passer, mixing in Sherwood, being bigger and physical at linebacker. It's something that I could see the Jets doing, and I'm not against it. So it's at least it would be a sense of identity.
I was watching the Atlanta Hawks playing game, and when Trae Young's off the floor, you're looking at their size. This is a little bit of a diversion here. Might be some Knicks content coming up. Let us know in the comments if you're interested. And just looking at their spacing and their sizing, I'm like, man, this team would be so fun without Trae. And just thinking about Ricochet and all these different guys. And it made me think of like the get off the bus philosophy. And when I hope for, just like when the Jets walk off the bus, they just look kind of scary.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about fake intimidation like Michael Clemens. I'm talking about just from a size perspective, from a speed perspective, from a getting to the corner, setting to the edge, filling the gaps, run blocking, just like fucking Jets are tough. They're a tough team to play. And it's something that I think the Chargers did last year that they kind of, in the first year of Harbaugh. And I completely agree. If I could choose one philosophy for each pick, despite the position, it would be athletes, size, things you can't teach, and then hoping that Glenn and company can be good teachers as well.
And I think you're probably, I don't think you can tell yet who the Jets want to be. But with their signings, a little hubris, that Jets hubris we talked about, but they are signing young, good athletic players. So let's see them continue to do that. I do like how there's speculation about the Jets pick. I still think the love with Membu and this kind of obsession with that, they need a tackle. Now, we don't have a tackle on our roster, really. I mean, it's not the end of the world if they started the season. They're not going to not draft a tackle. But again, I think you have to look at the draft. It's like Christmas. You're not just getting one present. You're getting one big one and a couple other really, second, third, fourth round pick. There's a lot of good offensive linemen that should be able to compete. So I'm okay with them just taking kind of the best player available. I don't think there's a position of need outside, like we talked about, defensive line. So, and I just think tight end is an overdraft in general when I know I can go get two guys for a fourth and fifth round pick. Let's just go get a big defensive end, a big linebacker, a big wide receiver. It doesn't really matter to me. Let's just have a philosophy and stick to it and continue that in the second and third round.
I want them to shoot their shot. I want them to set a tone. And I'm not saying they have to go off the board and take this year's Jahmyr Gibbs or, Jack Campbell or whatever it may be. But I do want them to take away the bullshit and simply say, this is our guy. This is who we want to be.
Yeah.
And if that's Warren, I think there's some validity to that, despite maybe having some disagreement. Membu, just to go through it, the idea of Olu, Simpson, Tittman, AVT, Membu, 1 through 5, that's like 2010 stuff. At least on paper.
But it's actually too good.
It's exciting.
It's actually, if you look at this is my problem, is that if you look at your resources, of course that sounds exciting, but you can't have that much finances invested in your offensive line and still be good, right? Like you just can't. At some point, that's going to break. If you're going, you're starting to hear some rumors that Jets might not sign AVT. So now you're just kind of in this perpetual. We keep throwing first and second round picks at guys as our offensive line, but they're not really sticking. Again, I don't have a problem with Membu. Again, because of that idea, that identity, but. I just don't feel that as a position of utter need like I do with the defensive line. But I think this is a great defensive line draft. I think they'll be able to get a good player in the second round. I don't think they can go the first and second round without taking a defensive lineman. So they're going to have their hands forced a little bit. But I think I would be okay if they just took an offensive lineman in the third round. That's the way I see the position of need.
Yeah, I think the board might solve their problems for them. I think they might line up where it's just O-line, D-line, tight end, D-line, D-line, tight end. I think it might line up where they might not even really have a problem addressing these things and having to make the tough choice of a linebacker who's much higher on their board than a defensive lineman. I think it's all going to kind of stack up pretty well just based off of I think they're lucky in that respect.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to re-sign AVT? I don't. I might just sniff test. It doesn't feel like he'll be back.
I can't say because he's always been. I know you're probably a little higher than AVT. I think he's a good player. He's had some bad injuries, like strange injuries. It doesn't seem like he's an injury-prone type of player. They've asked a lot of him, so let's see what he does this year. Leave him at guard. without Aaron, it's just everything's so different. It's just such a different kind of vibe on the team. Let's see if he can play 17 games and play at a high level. Is he worth $20 million? No, he hasn't played anywhere near that level of compensation. But he may be capable. He's only 25, so.
Yeah, I mean, history's not been great. The Jets, if you compare them to the other 31 teams, they aren't the worst at drafting. I think they've been far worse in the pro market.
I was reviewing the draft, Nick, and this is how you lose. How many players are on the Jets from the 2020 draft?
Yeah, none, right?
Zero. Yeah. I mean, zero. That is
rest in peace, Ashton Davis.
Yeah, and the guys that were on that team were they weren't exactly. It was Ashton Davis. Then you look at 2021. All right, so we got AVT, and you have the good Michael Carter, the defensive back, and that's it, right? And that was a draft where you had 2 first-round picks and a high second-round pick, and they actually had 2 first and 2 second. They traded up for AVT. There's just no one. Brandon Eccles is off the team. There's just none of these guys are still on the.
Don't remind me.
I know. I actually forgot that he wasn't. So from the 2021 draft, we only have AVT and Carter. Now Carter's a great player, and that's by far one of their best draft picks. But this is over and over. You're seeing this team is not drafting well. Now again, you get this kind of special year in 22 with Sauce Garrett and Jermaine and Brees and even Max Mitchell as a 4th-round pick was a pretty good pick.
Jeremy Ruckert.
Yeah, he's been a big bust. But these are just bad drafts. And then we look at 23, and again, it's not. I mean, how excited are you about these guys from the 23 draft class? McDonald, okay. Tittman seems like he's going to be an average player. Izzy's off the team. Carter Warren is a guy that I think you abhor. Converse is gone. These guys are just gone, and that's the reason the Jets are perpetually bad. It's not that they're spending too much money. It's that they just can't draft. They can't hit a 3rd-round draft pick to save their lives. But again, I don't think it's the draft picks. I think it's the system and the coaching. They have not developed players. It's so rare for them to develop players. It's a problem, and hopefully this is what Aaron can fix.
You're an educator. I mean, I remember the times when I would blow off a test. I mean, getting a 0 on a test to your average, as opposed to getting, you go into a test, you sit down, you get a 48. That sucks, right?
Yeah.
You know how much better a 48 is than a 0? And that feels like the Jets just continuously get zeros. They aren't, when I've made my point, they're not laughable in the sense of taking these, they're not taking Danny Watkins.
They're not taking the Jeff Lagemans anymore.
No, but it's just this element of just, man, you got nothing out of picks 3 through 7.
And they just never do.
You didn't get a swing tackle. You didn't get that slot corner, which obviously they finally hit one. And it's a game I want to play with you. And just, we're going to maybe go through, since the drought, which is 2011, go through what, if you could do it all over again, their prospects coming out of the draft, being able to add them to this current roster. It's a fun idea, but it's also kind of depressing.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys.
Selected many good players.
There's not a lot of guys that you say, oh man, if we had, you got to go all the way back. What was that? Was that 2010 with the Brick and Mangold? Was that draft?
That's 06.
06. All right, so that you got to go all the way back to 06 to get those guys. When you start looking at since the playoff drought, I mean, I looked at it, Nick, and there's barely any guys that you would even want to have on this team. Sheldon Richardson would probably be a guy that I would really want on my team. He actually was a really interesting player. He kind of fizzled out. I don't know if some of that was his work ethic, etc.
Well, in this game too, it's important to remember we get to do this all over again. So he's coming out of Missouri again.
Okay.
It's the same. It's the hope of Aaron Glenn. So there is some projection. I think that makes it fun. It's not just 36-year-old Sheldon Richardson coming off the couch. It's him as a prospect and what he could be. Yeah, I mean, the 2006, the Brick Mangold, and 07, which is Revis first round, David Harris second round, fundamental. And that's the reason why I defended Tannenbaum the way I have for so many years.
I don't know why he the thing about Tannenbaum that was different than any GM we've had since is the guy took risks. And even Joe did take some risks, like trading up for AVT. He was constantly trading up.
Sauce is a risk. That was not.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody had that.
Yeah, no, that was not a ironically,
we'll see what happens there. He might.
Yeah, who knows? And ironically, Stingley was the guy that I loved, who's kind of really developed into just a fantastic player. But even Joe's trade-ups were kind of weird. They weren't that kind of aggressiveness that Tannenbaum would go up and get his guy. He went up and he got Sanchez, and one of the actually great trades of all time for the Jets. They just traded such a random assortment of picks to get Sanchez and players for Sanchez.
They let it happen. They're like, oh, they're going to take this. They're going to take him. Okay, they're just going to let him take him. It's exciting.
But all right, so go ahead. I mean, if you have a first, do you have a first guy that you would take?
Yeah, I mean, let's go 1-3-1. I mean, to me, an honorable mention I wanted to mention because I don't think he's going to be on your list, and we can go boom, boom, boom. A guy that I think I would really like is actually one of their later round picks, not too long ago, Foley Fatukowski. I mean, I think that he would really fit this current roster to get him again as a rookie. I'd be kind of excited. I wanted to shout him out. Because again, he's not the first person you think of, but I mean, I think he'd really help this team, and it makes you a little bit excited. Maybe they're not as far away as you think. When just this run stuffing, he had some pass rush. I remember that was the highlight of that really bad tanking for Lawrence season. Was watching him and JFM switch on stunts and just be like, they're like demons. If this team can actually get something around him, it's kind of impressive.
It's another frustrating thing about the Jets. It does seem like, and we stunk for so long, but we're constantly losing good players in free agency. Yeah. Even this year, we lost some good players. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, we're such a clusterfuck that it just doesn't make sense that we're constantly losing good players. Like, even this year, we lose Reed. Guy's a good player. He's like, it's just like kind of Foley. Oh, we can't sign a guy like. Why not? Why the hell can't we?
Did, and it's just like, I'm not trying to say that they're the pillars of competence, but other teams will do this, the Pinocks, whatever it is. It's like, maybe you're not as smart as you think, and that's the Jets' hubris.
Yeah.
So my real number 3, I wanted to shout out Foley. My real number 3 is Demario Davis.
Yeah.
I think that it's something that I love Quincy as much as the next guy. Sherwood, an overpay, who cares? I think it was the right decision. You keep your young, decent players, homegrown guy. But the idea of what Demario has ultimately become, the idea of getting that again with what I'm hoping is a good defensive line draft. He's such a good player. He genuinely, like, the league pass game of flipping around, NFL, checking in on the Saints. I will do that when the Saints are on defense to watch him. He's that dynamic. He's that fun. He's Patrick Willis-esque. I get genuinely sad every time I see him because I miss him, and it was one of my all-time favorite Jets. So that'd be my number 3.
And the other special thing about him was we cut him or traded him twice. We got him back. No, you're actually pretty good. And watching him play, be like, you know what, you're kind of a pretty good player, but we're gonna trade you or release you or just not sign you again. Man, we make these ridiculous.
See what you're about Rex, man. I remember him. He'd pump his chest out. He'd pump his chest out about a lot of guys. But when he was just like, this guy's Ray Lewis, man. And he would say it, and he wasn't messing around, and hasn't quite gotten there. But if you're talking about impact day to day, you've got your Fred Warners. You've got these guys. Demario is a step below them, and he's not talked about at all. And
he's a Pro Bowl, All-Pro type of player, and we haven't had a guy like that. I mean, maybe Sauce was, but I think every real Jets fan knows there's certain things that's going to be a segment for next week. Things that Jets fans, we all kind of know. Yeah. And we all kind of know that Sauce is not really that good. He's pretty handsy.
The decline was somewhat predictable.
Yeah, because the refs have started calling because he holds on a lot of plays, and so that's next week.
There's value in that too. There's value in his length, and we can get Sauce next week because I think that's a good idea. But I think one of the nicest things maybe the nicest compliment. It's kind of akin. It's a distant son of the guy's just a football player. To me, a nicest compliment is like a second team All-Pro guy. Yeah, it's like the classic letterbox 3 stars and a heart. Follow us, find us. It's that man, that movie was just solid and I like it.
Yeah.
And it's like the second team.
I'll watch that movie again.
Those are my guys.
Yeah, I'll watch that movie again. I like that. All right,
number 3.
My number 3. This might actually be my number 2. Is Mo Wilkerson.
Wow. I considered him. Almost an honorable mention, but
you talk about a guy who, if he's a draft prospect again, who would just be perfect on this team. He's kind of like a JFM 2.0, like a better version of JFM. I think he may. Maybe I'll get sued for slander. It's a Knicks name, so you can sue him. I think everyone knew he was just like an alcoholic. I think that was his problem. He just had some demons that were in a bottle, and he when he played, man, he was almost unblockable. And if you put him on this team next to Q, and you could push him inside, and you could put him. I mean, can you imagine the power you could have with on the left side with Jermaine, Mo, and Q, and then on the right side, you got then McDonald swinging around, speeding around the edge. It'd be a really interesting team. I thought that was a guy that I think really there just was something. I think Samini would kind of got himself in some trouble, kind of alluding to it. Just something wasn't right about Mo, and this didn't work out. But as a guy that, if he could do it again, would be a really nice fit on this team.
Yeah, that's a sad thing. It's sweet too. You'd like to give him another shot at that. I also think he was, from a football X's and O standpoint, he was miscast. Being a 3-4 D end, even 2011, 2012, 2013, which 2013 might have been his peak. 2015. It was a different league, man. It was a very different league. And we went right from Rex to Bowles playing that 34. Him as a 4-3 interior defensive lineman, to your point, next to Q, because he's a big guy.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting. And, it's a bummer how it worked out. The snack exchange was fun, man.
Yeah.
Copels, Damon, Mo, Sheldon. Yeah, that was brutal.
All right.
I flagged his name. Similarly, I'm going to go with the same position. My number 2 is Leonard Williams.
Yeah.
It was pretty easy. I tried to go through the rounds, but I was trying not to just pick first-round picks, but it was difficult not to go with the higher-ups. Leonard Williams is a good player. Yeah. He always has been. It's the classic career arc of overrated, underrated, maybe a little overrated, and now he's underrated again. Probably had his best year of his career last year with the Seahawks. Yeah. Watched a lot of those. It's my family's, NFC team there, and I think that whether it was to do it all over again or present day, Leonard Williams would be an absolutely massive add for this team. And I think that similar to the Mo Wilkerson, him next to Q, which is a theme. That's why in our first round, please consider first and second round defensive lineman for this team, because I think it would really make a difference. He's so big and he's so strong, and he plays a lot. He's durable. I think he would be a huge addition.
Yeah, I think he actually was my number 1, because I don't think I think he's a, I think every once in a while you'll say that guy's a winning football player. That guy's a winning player, and that can kind of transcend to all different sports. And you just watch Leonard. That guy's a winning player. He's not going to blow up the stat sheet, but at the same time, he could be the kind of guy that I think has developed into that. He was actually super young coming in. There was a lot of, he dropped to the Jets at the time. It was a really kind of difficult pick. They took the best player available, and he never really, again, classic Jets. They dropped this guy, and he was probably only 24. They let him go. It's just a mess. It's just this franchise, I swear.
I remember the time when we traded him to the Giants for a third rounder. This is a huge win. We fleeced them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a terrible pick considering the fact that it wasn't going to work out here, at least not then. But, the guy's turned into a really good player.
Yep. He's a really good player. He would slot in so nice to Q, and this team would be a drastically different team with him. So, for my number 2, this is going to be... Now, I did take draft round into part of this, all right? So,
sure,
can't all
the value of it, yeah.
And this guy would be, I think, the perfect fit, and because we can fix his neck. And my number 2 is Quincy Nua, is taking that guy, putting him on the Jets. Yeah. He's the type of player they really can need, who I think is
a tight end or a receiver.
Just whatever. Put him out there at receiver. Put him in the slot. Yeah. Put him out there. That guy, when he was healthy, and it was only, I think, a year, maybe a year and a half, he was a big guy. He was fast, and he would run away from linebackers and defensive backs want nothing to do with them. And just having that physical presence to go with Garrett, to go with Fields, and the kind of, I just would love to see it. And he's the guy that I think would just really make a difference, especially I think he was a 4th-round pick. Let me just double-check that.
Might be 5th.
Oh, he was a 6th-round pick. I'm sorry.
Oh, boy.
So getting him in the 6th round, can you imagine adding him to this roster, just slotting him in with Garrett and just play, a little bully, get some big guys out there. So Quincy's my guy that I'd love to just have on this team again.
I believe it was 2015 to 2016, and he had the lone positive moment of many Jet fans' least favorite season, maybe last year, you would remember it's money. The 2016 post-Fitzpatrick run Jets opening game against the Bengals. I remember he scored a long touchdown on a design play, and it felt like we were going to just pick up where we left off in 2015. It was that year-long stretch of him being so fun and so violent. He loved the game. He worked so. I know he had a PED suspension, and that kind of really threw the spanners of it. It threw spanners into the works, and he got injured. It's really unfortunate. So to give him another crack at it would be pretty awesome. And yeah, the violence and I think that he would fit really well with Aaron too. So yeah, that'd been cool. This is kind of sad. I don't like this game. I don't know why we did this.
Yeah. All right. So my number one was Leonard. So go ahead. Yeah.
You missed the obvious number one.
Who?
Geno. It's absolutely Geno. It's a combination of both because he had the talent at the time and knowing just what he's become. And I'm not saying you're going to necessarily get this version of Geno in this fake game that we just created off the top of our heads, but it's the amalgamation of what he is, what he was, the talent. You maybe curb some of the immaturity with what he's ultimately such a great leader now. And the Raiders, what they've given, they extended him immediately. These people who know football. Brady, he was the pick. Geno Smith on this team, I would be so ecstatic. And it was, I know you were a big Geno fan at the time. I think
I've always loved. I have always been, and I think I was accosted not just by yourself but your father as well when I said
I'm not a Geno guy.
When I said, hey, Geno, the guy just needs a chance, and I've always thought he had an unbelievable arm. He still plays with incredible hubris. That's the word. He there was a couple times on the Jets where he tried to put the ball behind his back when he was getting sacked.
So awesome,
it's strange, so cool. And he would fumble, and it just. But remember, that's the guy who got punched in the face for being a scumbag, and nobody cared on the Jets. So like Chris Carter, I don't think Geno becomes.
We don't know what happened there. Maybe IK was a jerk too. We don't actually.
Yeah, we know because nobody gave a shit from the team.
Someone care. No.
If somebody punches the starting quarterback and no one's like outraged and cutting the player, etc., there's probably a problem. And so I don't think Geno becomes Geno without getting jacked in the face. But I can see that would change the franchise considerably.
Some of the big time throws, again, watching all the Seattle games. For example, Glenn, not a fan of him in 2013. 2023, I mean, he's a top 12, top 13 quarterback, and he's got that ability to, on any given day, outplay the elite quarterbacks. He's got that about him, and, man, I feel like to be able to usher in this new era here, the Fields thing is fun, and I'm excited about it, but to have the stability of a Geno with his ability to make those big-time throws would be exciting.
I have an honorable mention. I think it's one of your favorite guys as well. Is Marcus May would be a really nice addition to this football team.
Oh, man. I love Marcus. On the record, the Jamal Adams, Marcus May double tap, I thought was sick at the time. I thought it was cool. I thought it was awesome. I was like, man, talking about an identity thing. I thought it was cool.
And Marcus May was always probably a better player than Jamal. Like game in, game out, the guy everything was a good ball hawk.
Too. Like,
he was just a pro. Just knew where he was supposed to be. And again, the Jets let him go and didn't want to sign him, and I think he's fallen on some hard times. But the guy just was, for the Jets, was their best player on defense. Kind of felt good having him back there at the back in the defense, and that's something that I think, especially the last 2 years, I think a young Marcus May in the back of their defense behind Sauce and Reed to just kind of cover up some of the slop. Man, that would have made a big difference on this team.
Foley, he's in the Foley bucket. He's in that bucket of, like, it might not be the sexy pick, but just supplanting him next to a Cisco this year would be pretty interesting. And I think that it would move the needle, and it's a win, it's a win or two extra. All right, in a similar vein.
Wait, one more guy.
Hit me.
What about Jamal? Jamal comes back. And you say to Jamal, you say to Jamal, hey, man, like, you just got to be this kind of hybrid pass rusher, honey badger, be around the ball type of player.
He's just, I think with the time we jokingly equated him to a Russell Westbrook of just like you just have to design everything around him getting his sacks. Like it's literally just those years were designed around getting kids to buy his jerseys and make the Pro Bowl, because it's just you have to make it so he's the focal point, a guy who can't cover, not a great tackler, just using his athleticism. And to give him some credit too, I'm not a fan, but to give him some credit too, his tenacity, especially at the time, which was valuable and appreciated. But it was all schemed up, and it's just I'm not that.
Also, the fact that we passed on both Watson and Mahomes and weren't even considering them, it's pretty ironic, because the reason we were going into that was a scorched earth offseason, and Jamal was hey, this is the new attitude, this is the new type of leadership,
that philosophy we're talking about. Yep.
Because the truth is, we were waiting for Darnold in that class. The plan was tank for Darnold or Rosen. I guess Josh Allen was probably in that
Even
conversation.
Lamar
at the time.
That early. Yep.
Was why would we take a guy like Mahomes or Watson? We're going to take Jamal Adams. Now
it's like this year. You're not going to reach for a Sanders or a Ward. That's what people were talking about. That's how it was.
Now again, Mahomes doesn't become Mahomes without Andy, and we would have ruined Mahomes. I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting question. Could we have?
Well, these traitsy guys like a Mahomes or an Allen, or even a Geno to a much lesser extent, but it's somewhat similar. These traitsy guys, which are the quarterbacks I'm interested in, always have been. It's that Ron Wolf mentality. Like the landing spot matters much more than some of these other types of players, and it's just there's no real knowing. He'd be a great boyfriend if he wasn't such a jerk, type of thing, where it's like, well, he is. Like, just like what we could do with some of these guys, we would probably have ruined Allen, Mahomes, any of those guys.
That wouldn't matter.
All right, we played a game last week, which is really just a way to wax poetic about weird Jets. But I did running back last week. I posited. Did you have any chance to think about some receivers that you've been in love with?
It's easy. I mean, where do you want to go? Right. So number one by a mile is Rob Moore from, I don't even know if this predates you, from Syracuse, supplemental draft pick, number 85, which I could show you and all of our 40 subscribers, that there's some, that was my high school number because of Rob Moore. I patented my game after Rob Moore. I didn't wear gloves as a receiver because Rob Moore didn't. And I love that guy. He was my favorite player and actually went on, again, the Jets traded him. Went on to lead the league in receiving one year. I don't know if you knew that for the Cardinals. Just loved Rob Moore. I can't get enough Rob Moore. And I have a PSA 10 Rob Moore in this room.
Pop one? It's got to be Pop one.
No, yeah. There's more than one, but wow. it didn't cost me more than $1 because although I saw him, I kind of did a deep dive. He's the Tennessee Titans wide receiver coach. Now, he looks great. Good for you, Rob Moore. Yeah. He's not that much. Yeah, we could probably. Yeah, we could. He's not much older than me, but he looks great. Rob Moore, my number one. Man, I love that guy.
That's a great pick. I mean, it's mine just based off the age. It's kind of spoken for, but I think one that doesn't get quite the love that some of like the Santana Mosses get. Fun. Jeremy Curley was awesome.
Yeah, he was
awesome. Jeremy Curley was really cool. He was somebody that I considered for our first game. If it matched up properly. And the guy was a player, and a lot of it was kind of schemed up, similar to Jamal Adams. But whether it was punt returning, yak, I loved how he played when he had ball in his hands. And some of those were some rough years, especially after 2011. And he was a bright spot. He's a Bilal Powell variant at receiver, and it was it was exciting. And
but isn't Curley just the?
Don't say it.
You know who I'm trying to say. The generic version of Kotri. That's the guy. Like, Kotri's the guy.
I'm going to tease this for the rest of time. We're doing a 3-hour Jericho Kotri pod.
Yeah.
We're going to go through every reception and just break it down.
Made
it's a movie.
The greatest catch that I've ever seen. Guy tore his hamstring and made a diving catch. And that was when the Jets were good. And it was a
favorite game that season too. It was those 3 overtime games in a row.
And then Santonio broke it, and the guy had a torn hamstring and tore his hamstring, and still Sanchez is rolling to his right, and he throws across his body, and he dives and just makes the most unbelievable catch I've ever seen.
I don't know if it's gonna be a live stream, but we're gonna do a watch along of a game soon. And I think that should be the first one.
Yeah,
It's
and I
probably on
think
YouTube. I think it'd be so exciting to watch that again. Rodney Poole or something making a shoestring tackle.
I think our goal is to get Kotri on the spot. That's our goal. That like we hit a
nervous.
I would have to
nervous.
just do so much research. I'd be asking him about what his favorite type of.
I don't want to
waffle
get
is.
the college wrong or the high school. I don't even know, but because I follow him on X, the Everything app. I follow him, and I believe he's the wide receivers coach for Limestone. I believe it's a university. I don't know, but it's speaking at school there. But I know that he's a coach, and I like his tweets, whatever they are. I don't even look.
Yeah. What is this? Do we know a lot about Jericho's? Like, is he like movies or pizza? What is he?
He's a huge Walter Hill fan. He just is crushing 48 Hours and the Warriors.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know.
Okay.
Made it up. The watch along. I mean, that 2010 game was amazing. Yeah, Kotri's the answer, but Chancey Stuckey is up there for me.
Yeah, you like that? You like this slot? You like Ardarius Stewart? I think you were a bigger.
Absolutely, I liked that pick.
Are we?
Brutal pick.
Where are we doing the draft next week? Are you gonna? Okay?
Your house. The Knicks are playing. The Knicks are scheduled that night, so we get
perfect.
Just like last year.
Just like last year. All right, tell Glenn we'll have the pie and we'll make it a tradition. And Glenn will be asleep. I don't know. 7 picks in. He usually doesn't make it past double digits.
Do you want to go live after? We'll go live after. Or either the night of, we'll go home to separate quarters and do it, or Friday before round 2 starts. But we'll have a pod up for reaction. Final pick. Who was the first round pick for the Jets?
The first round pick for the Jets, I think, will be Membu. That's what I think it will be.
I think it's Warren. Okay, yeah, we'll see.
All right.
I'm okay with both. All right, man. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.